Welcome everyone. Today we have an amazing update for the Lightning Marksman in terms of the HP build. So before we say anything, let's have a look at this demonstration with over 3000 corruption. And this demonstration is done live online. So looking behind me, this is an online testing with over 3000 corruption, and this build does an amazing job. Now this is something I have always been wanting to test with my friend, but we're not having enough time and I have been a little sick lately. And some of my members on our Discord have been sharing this build, and this is an amazing discovery. So yes, the HP setup is extremely tanky, durable, and can lifesteal tons of health even at 3000 corruption. And over here our friend is using my previous cheap setup using without the red rings. I have also updated the build with even more durability and also using red rings. So what you are seeing is the Lightning Marksman with HP sustained damage reduction build with tons of armor is mulling through over 3000 corruption. And this is not even the highlight of the build. So let's have a look at this build against bosses with a different setup. So me and my friend has been considering using the Eye of Rain, and this particular dagger allows you to stack multiple times of your critical strike multiplier, and this allows you to 2 second the boss over 3000 corruption. So let's have a look at the shade, which will give us even more demonstration. I'm really glad someone else is also testing similar concepts, and it's really nice to see this build works wonderfully with online build. Because a lot of you are saying we're testing offline, but simply because items and also the availability was too hard to get those online. But here we can see a demonstration of this setup with online build using Eye of Rain. And this is amazing, right? 4 seconds, 3000 corruption plus boss was killed within 4 seconds. So what is happening is we're watching the demonstration with Valid over here, and this has been shared on my Discord channel, and I really want to make an update video to showcase this particular setup to you guys, and this is something we wanted to work on, but I was a little sick to make the testing. So if you guys want to follow some Endgame Marksman testing replays, make sure you follow Valid and also subscribe to him on his YouTube channel over here. So a big thank you for Valid over here for sharing and also testing this over 3000 corruption online. And here he did provide us with 2 different variations of the build. I have updated for another version in case you guys are using the red rings for even more durability and also more sustain that can allow you to push maybe even 3500 corruption. Because as you can see in the demonstrations, we don't like damage, we don't like sustain. And with the new setup, we deal like 2 or 3 times even more damage with the new dagger. Now because the biggest highlight for the setup are gonna be coming from using this particular dagger, Eye of Rain, let's jump over to the boss slaying build. Now keeping in mind guys, in the demonstrations you are seeing 2 variety of the build. So this is the mapping build and this is the boss slaying build. The mapping build follows what we had before without having the red rings, because this allows you to have the throw damage mana cost reduction, which is quite important for this build. So jumping over to this unique sword, which provides us with tons of additional critical strike multiplier. That's what we wanted. So let me briefly show you guys in the video, which is going to be a little harder to see, but let's have a look at the effects of the sword at work as he kills the shade. So here you're looking at over 430 stacks, and this is crazy. So here 460 stacks of Eye of Rain. And each stacks provide you guys with 5% critical strike multiplier. So what you're looking at is, if my math is correct, we're looking at over 2000 critical strike multiplier. And just the sheer number of this is pretty crazy, right? So 2000 critical strike multiplier. Let's see how much. And here with all of our build combined, we only have close to 500 critical strike multipliers before the effect of this sword is applied. So effectively, you are multiplying your damage by 4 times more damage. And together, you're sitting over close to 2500 critical strike multipliers. And having the ability to have close to or over 100% critical chance, you're hitting 4 or 5 times higher damage using the combination of one sword plus this dagger. Now because you have some mana issues, which I explain how to adjust for this, because you're only having one dagger, this is actually an insane combo to deal massive amount of damage against the boss. Now in terms of the crafting, we're looking at tier 7 critical strike melee chance on the sword. So why is that? It's because the implicit of those daggers provide us with 4% base critical chance, and this is why we can go with critical strike multipliers or lightning damage in the previous setup. But with this new setup, if you do not have the increased critical chance here, let's have a look. So here you have tier 7 critical strike increase, and you're sitting at over 100% critical chance, right? So let's lower this one down to tier 1. Notice your critical chance all of a sudden goes back to about 50%, even with the helmet and even with the dagger, because you're no longer getting implicit on the critical strike chance. So it's quite important if you're crafting onto this dagger, it's better to have increased critical strike chance, so you sit over 100 critical strike chance. And this, in combined with a massive boost of critical strike multiplier, allows you to deal insane amount of damage. Now, because we're only using 1 blast daggers, it is very important for me to stress it out. Aim for 6 minor mana cost reduction on the detonating arrows, because this will matter a lot for your mana cost reduction, and this will allow you to have close to no mana cost with your detonating arrows if you're also having the mana cost reduction onto those rings. So it's very important, guys, aim for -6 mana cost on one of those daggers, because you're only using one of them. Now, at the same time, there is a slight min and max adjustment to the blast daggers itself. Because you're sitting on so much critical strike multipliers, you can afford to go with higher lightning damage. So notice the tier 7 is now higher lightning damage, while the tier 5 is a critical strike multiplier. And this is the only adjustment for those 2 weapons. And you just need those weapons to tier 2 of 2 legendary potential. Because while during the boss fight, you don't need to be lifestealing for the boss, because you will be dying super fast. You do want to lifesteal onto other monsters as you're mapping through the game with over 3000 corruption. Now, as we keep going with the new setup for the bossing build, you can see that the amulet is also adjusted for additional lightning penetration coming from devotion and with even more critical strike multipliers. There is a big highlight over here using the Julia's particular ring, and this allows us to have insane amount of throwing attack speed together with throwing mana cost reduction. Now, one of the bigger factor is that the stats on the ring can be tripled once you use a movement spell, and this allows us to shift around and then gaining 3 times amount of stats, including mana regen, throwing attack speed, and also throwing mana cost reduction. Those 2 rings are surprisingly effective in terms of dealing amount of burst damage against a single target. So again, let's watch the shot replay of this poor 3000 plus shade getting one-shotted. And it melts super fast, right? And look at the stacks of the ring, over 465 stacks. So this is an insane combination which is designed to one-shot boss within 4 or 5 seconds, because nothing survives and the shade didn't even do anything and it got one-shotted. As you can see with the rest of the build, it is pretty straightforward as what we were having before, and together with increased dagger damage and also dagger critical chances, the build is quite focused on dealing higher damage if you want to do a boss slayer build. Now, during this time, you can see some of the idols has been adjusted for increasing damage, because we are not trying to out-tank the boss in high corruptions, but rather we're trying to deal insane amount of damage to take down the boss. Now, I do want to come over to the skills and also passives. Our friend here has taken away Smoke Bomb in favor of Asset Flux, which allows him to have chance of blinding, chance of providing hits to himself, chance of armor shedding, and together with Validity chances, this allows the build to have even more debuff and deal even higher burst damage. Now, in terms of passives, our friend has opted to not go with the flow over here for additional throwing attack speed with the combinations, but rather he opted to go with over here with concentration, which will provide him with additional movement speed and also dodge chance if he has not been hit in the past 4 seconds. And this is pretty ideal if you're going for bosses, because they don't get to hit you, right? And this is also not bad for the bonus movement speed as you travel through the map. Now, the blessings for the HP setup have not changed compared to the previous build. Critical strike multipliers, all resistance, increased armor, percentage armor, and also together with increased lightning damage. Again, guys, if you're going for mapping, I recommend using one of the setup for mapping. And you can see our friend's current setup, which is using the previous, which is providing him with additional throwing attack, mana cost reduction, and also even more throwing attack speed. we also have the setup over here for the red rings if you want to follow this, and this will provide you with even more durability, sustain, and damage reduction. Now let's come over to the skill rotations and also additional tips in terms of mana management. So as you can see, we progress through the 3000 corruption maps. It doesn't seem to have a problem, because once you have enough sustain on your build, you can just mow through enemies and you have so much life gain that it's not a problem against most monsters. Now during this time, should you find yourself short of mana, you can always pop a potion. And having a potion means you have even higher mana regen, which allows you to sustain yourself by casting more throwing traps. And as you throw traps, you'll be life stealing. So I'm sure you guys won't have any problems with over 3000 corruptions if you're using any of the HP setup with some decent gears. Now the bigger focus of course will be coming from the shade. And as for the shade, what you're going to see is you do want to start the fight by having some potions. And our friend here did not have any potions. So the demonstration of the build is showcased without having any potions. But this still dealt tons of damage. So having potions means you have even higher mana regen, just for the case that you spend all your mana and you don't have enough to sustain yourself to be constantly casting your throwing traps. So what you want to do first before the boss comes out, you want to be swifting into the boss, and this is a big factor. Once you swift into the boss, then you gain 3 times the effect onto your rings, and then you just go ham. And this really allows you to have a massive amount of increased throwing attack speed, which is tremendous for the build, and this stacks to over millions and also millions of damage. So each single tick is doing over 1 million damage, as you can see over here. And the build is insanely powerful as it stacks over 460 stacks. Let me see if I can see a higher numbers, we can't really see. But the build is crazy, and this is going to be by far one of the strongest marksman build with the HP setup. Now this of course takes us back to the question that what if the lightning marksman is bugged over here with copper dust arrows and also with arc blast. So this is one of the ways me and my friend has been planning to be testing for additional damage. And I'm really happy to see someone else is also working on a similar concept. So because they're also testing online, I decided to share and also showcase this one to give you guys the best update. So this way guys, even if the build gets nerfed in damage, you can adjust into the Eye of Ring for even higher critical chance to deal massive amount of damage. Now at the same time guys, if you're using a warding setup, you can also consider using Eye of Ring together with one blast dagger for even high damage in terms of single target. And I will be updating this one for you guys in this video as well, in the links below. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this latest update for the Lightning Marksman for the HP setup for insane amount of damage. Now if you guys haven't joined the Discord, make sure you join us, because we'll be sharing a lot of cool builds, a lot of different updates on last Epoch. And this is how we discover new build and also new updates for the latest build. And we also have additional tabs of Path of Exile, and I'll be working on Path of Exile and updating you guys on the latest builds and also the best setup for the new league. Now if you guys find my videos and also guides helpful and also want to support my passion in making more guides and also more videos for the last Epoch and also more games to come like Path of Exile, please consider joining me on Patreon, and also here I have created my Ko-Fi page. You can also support me directly through donations, but supporting me continuously with one of those memberships will mean a lot for my future updated videos and to become financially sustainable, so I can be continuing making videos for you guys and doing what I love the most, and that is to share and also teach our communities as I dive into different games and making more guides for you guys. And as you guys gonna see in the future, I'll have different ranks and also perk advantages and also special events and also special features for members like account reviews, perfecting the build for you guys, and also co-op time play, and also even special future videos for you guys on your special build for different members.